Let me share with you my screen for nursing research week 8 and 9. So you are now done with your proposal defense and you are now ready to um, edit those papers with regards to suggestions and recommendations of the panel members. So we have here the method of data interpretation in qualitative research. I will not be discussing the steps of this method of data interpretation, but this recorded video will just be for the purpose of informing you that your design and your approach for qualitative research must be congruent with the method of data interpretation that you will be using. You have here, number one, you have your collizing, you have your 9 steps. You would see some books now that modify the Colizzi's method of interpretation, but it will just be okay as long as you will follow the 9 steps or the 7 steps of Colizzi as indicated or as written in that book or paper. Next is you have your George's method of interpretation. You have 7 steps. Okay. You have your Patterson and Derad. You have your 5 steps. You have your Van Kaam. You have at least 7 steps of Van Kaam, but you have to be very careful if you're not familiar with how you will be going to use the method of data interpretation, then you should not be using this one. You have here Van Manen. Okay, Van Manen is I think 4 steps. Okay, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you have your Istubert in 1991. That includes your 10 steps. So those are the method of data interpretation in qualitative research as presented in the book of Stewart and Carpenter. And of course, you have your thematic analysis that is frequently used in descriptive qualitative research or even in Heideggerian phenomenology. Okay, we have here the WHO informed consent. This is an example of the WHO informed consent that will be given to your participants or that will be discussed to your participants later when you will be starting your data collection or interview. So it contains the name of the principal investigator, the researcher, and if the researcher will have a co-author, then you will just be writing the names here. And of course, it will contain the title of the study. Okay, this is a working title because this is still the proposal. We're still talking about the proposal. So in qualitative research, you have your working title, and then later on, after the study, you will have your final title with that's congruent with your findings. So the WHO informed consent will contain the following: your name, your institution, and what is the purpose of doing the study. Okay. So this one is work of a master's student, okay, on the lived experiences of fathers with babies admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit. So this one are the things that you'll be going to discuss with regards to the confidentiality of the research to your participants, of course. And then you will be going to discuss to them or tell them that they have the right to withdraw, and it's entirely voluntary. And your type of interview that you will be using, if you will be utilizing that structured interview, semi-structured interview. So this is quite long, but you have to get every detail, or you have to include all the details in your WHO informed consent. So you will be discussing how will you be doing the interview, who will be there during the interview, how long will you be storing the data. So approximately in all books, congruently you will have to have the 3 to 5 years or 5 years or more, okay, or 5 years. Okay. So you will be telling the participants also of how long the research will take place and when will be the data gathering and how long will the interview be. So the risk will be discussed later. And of course, the benefits that the participant will get from the study. We will be discussing about publications and where will they get your data or your phone number, the phone number of the ERB, or the IRB, the Institutional Review Board, or if they have questions regarding the study. And of course, the part two of the WHO informed consent is the um, uh, about the invitation, about the title, okay, and the participant is voluntarily consenting in the participation or in participating in the study. Okay, so this will contain now, this will be in a Word document if it will be given to you as an example, so you could use this in your data. Then how about establishing trustworthiness of data? In qualitative research, it is basic that you will be establishing the trustworthiness of data and to ensure that qualitative research yields valid, consistent, and significant results. Data quality and trustworthiness must be ensured because qualitative research investigate human experiences rather than numerical metrics. So there is a strict criteria for validity and reliability. Um, and of course, credibility must be established. So this one is from Lincoln and Guba. So you have here the credibility. So as it's stated here, it includes activities that increase the probability that credible findings will be produced through prolonged engagement. And of course, as a researcher, you will have to establish the credibility to confirm the precision and reliability of your findings. What will you do here is you have to um, at least have prolonged engagement, okay? And of course, member checking and triangulation. Okay? So you have to do these things to augment credibility. How about dependability? Again, it is the criterion met once the researchers have demonstrated the credibility of the findings. So this one again is another for triangulation, but for the credibility, it talks about prolonged engagement. So you will be very sure that your data or the data that you're presenting is credible. For dependability, you have to maintain an audit trail. So when you say an audit trail, it is these are the methods. This contains the method that you have done, okay, for the analysis of the study. And sometimes we let the researcher include this in your appendices, but please do not include all the verbatim there, the actual coding, the data categorization, and the formation of teams, because other researchers could just derive or make another study out from your verbatim or the things that you have presented there. So in the presentation of an audit trail, of course, okay, in dependability, you just have to at least cut and paste a portion of those parts that have been mentioned. How about confirmability? It is the process of criterion by leaving an audit trail again, okay, or recording of activities over time. And so this one, another one is confirmability, and that is another one here in conformability aside from audit trail is reflexivity. Okay, reflexivity um, again will contribute to the objectivity of the research. So when you say reflexivity, kasi this will contain now your experiences in doing the research. Okay, actually, in qualitative research, after you do the qualitative research, you could have a separate part on reflexivity, on what are the things that you have encountered during the conduct of the qualitative research. If your biases were proven, or if your biases were not proven to be true. So in that reflexivity, okay, you will have to discuss everything that you have encountered again in the research. How about transferability? Okay, transferability denotes the degree to which the results of a qualitative study could be generalized to other population. Okay, so or um, it is the counterpart of generalizability in quantitative research. So this one, you have to have a detailed descriptions of the research context and the participants for you to be able to assess the applicability of findings in other environments. So that is all about establishing trustworthiness of data. So you have to include the credibility, dependability, confirmability, and transferability. How about ethical considerations in research? So you have here um, the consent as a voluntary, right? So you have to be very sure that the consent is talking about uh, the participant as as an individual uh, who volunteers to be a part of the research. Ethical considerations tells us how we should conduct the research, of course. These directives for the ethical conduct of nursing research are guided by the researcher's integrity and applied through personal decision making. So we have here the legal guidelines also. Okay. Another one is you have to be very sure that the research serves a worthy purpose. So you are not just conducting the research because of your personal um, benefit. So it should be for the benefit of the nursing profession as a whole. Okay, the knowledge gained is unobtainable by other means. So you're conducting the research because you wanted to get or to discover something that is not to be discovered by other means or other ways. The anticipated results justify the performance of the experiment. So it should be more of beneficial than of that being or than of the research being harmful. Okay, unnecessary physical and mental suffering or harm is avoided. You have to minimize the risk. Okay, in the participation of research, there are times that in qualitative research you might be asking some questions that might hurt or might remind the participant of something that is painful in their life. So as a researcher, you have to be ready with psychologist or a psychiatrist should there be an incident wherein your participant will have a PTSD. Okay, it is your responsibility to debrief them. Okay, or it's your responsibility that your participant will be debriefed by psychologist or psychiatrist after the participation, their participation in your research. Okay? And that should be included in your data gathering tool and procedure, or in your data gathering procedure, I should say. Death or disability is not an expected outcome. So again, maximum protection of your participant or participants or respondents is necessary. And properly qualified scientists conduct experiments. So when you're doing, for example, a research that is more of the experimental or randomized controlled trial, okay? So it must be done by a qualified scientist, and you should not be experimenting on something that you are not familiar with. Okay? We have here what we call as therapeutic research. It is expected to confer on the study subject an opportunity to receive a treatment that might be beneficial. So when you say a therapeutic research, it is conducted to prove something that is beneficial. And when you say non-therapeutic research, it is carried out for the purpose of generating knowledge that, and it's not expected to benefit the study subject, but might lead to improved treatment in the future. So you're doing a research that you are not yet so sure of what will come out in the research, and that is not therapeutic, and you should be very careful with this one. So what is all about the Belmont report? Okay, so the Belmont report, um, which could be viewed, or it is, or it could begin by stating a scientific research, okay, has produced substantial social benefits. So the Belmont report actually is a document that was published in 1978, and that has become the cornerstone or statement of ethical principles on which regulations for protection of human subjects are based. So we have here, of course, we have here the role, and I still remember that in here in the Belmont report, these results are based on a broader ethical principle that could provide a framework really on how to evaluate investigators' judgment when you are designing, okay, when you are designing and carrying out your research. And the foundational ethical principle relevant to the ethics of human subjects are described in number one, you have your respect for persons. Okay, the first principle incorporates two ethical considerations or convictions. You have here number one, the individuals should be treated as autonomous or beings capable of making their own decisions, of course, and that the persons with diminished autonomy or those who are not capable of making their own decisions should be protected. Okay? And the extent of protection afforded to those incapable of self determination will, of course, depend on the risks, harms, and benefits of the study. So, the principle of respect for persons is divided into two separate moral requirements, and that is number one. You have the requirement to acknowledge the person's autonomy and the requirement to protect the individuals with diminished autonomy. So you have to protect the person who is capable of deciding to participate, and you also have to protect, okay, the those individuals with diminished autonomy. So this one, persons with diminished autonomy sometimes are regarded as the vulnerable or the member of the vulnerable population. So the vulnerable population in qualitative research, okay, are the individuals who possess limited autonomy, or that is, they are not fully, or they could not fully participate in the consent process. So examples here are your children with dementia, cognitive disorders, prisoners, okay, pregnant women, older persons, terminally ill persons, hospitalized persons, homeless, even students are now considered a part of the vulnerable population. Okay, you have here transgender and individuals who are prone to harm or exploitation. So with respecting their integrity and minimizing their risk from participating in the research, of course, you are able to protect or respect those participants, or you will have you will be able to respect the participants or observe respect for persons in the conduct of research. We have here beneficence also. Okay, this is actually a basic principle of ethics that states that persons should have their decisions respected, be protected from harm, and have steps taken to ensure their well-being. Okay, this is one of the most fundamental ethical principle in research. That is, you will have to do no harm, and in observing this, you have to make sure that the well-being of the participants, okay, they should not be harmed in variety of ways, including physical harm or injury, psychological harm, for example, worry, stress, or fear, or social harm, loss of friends or one's place in society, and economic harm or loss of employment. Okay, so this one, researchers must strive to minimize harm to achieve the best possible balance in between the benefits to be gained from the participation and the risks of being a participant. So, um, of course, in here, the Belmont report tells us that the assessment of the risks and the benefits of the study presents an opportunity to gather comprehensive information about the proposed research. Okay? You have to be very sure of the purpose of your research, and you as an investigator, okay, strives to design the study that will answer a meaningful question. Okay? Will have to have a review committee that will determine whether the risk uh, or the risks inherent in the participation are justified. Okay, ayan. Three, or the third one, is justice. This incorporates participants' right to fair treatment and fairness in distribution of the benefit and burden. Okay, so you have here, according to the report, or Belmont, the Belmont report, I should say, an injustice would occur when a benefit to which a person is entitled is denied, or when some burden is unduly imposed. So, as you have here, the example, selection of research subjects needs to be closely scrutinized to determine whether some subjects are there are racial and ethnic minorities, or persons confined to institutions, or welfare of recipients. So you have to, again, uh, you have also other, for example, in this one, the ethical nurse researcher considers all these principles. You have your beneficence, respect for persons, and justice. Okay, in the conduct of the research study, and this is designed, of course, for you to be able to um, conduct the study, and the results of the research of the study will not be in jeopardy. Okay, so we call ourselves the ethical researcher. Okay. During the research, human subjects can suffer from harm in the following ways. So they could have the physical injury, okay, the psychological injury, the worry, the stress, or fear, as what I mentioned a while ago, the social loss, loss of friends or place in society, and economically loss of employment. So as what I've told you, you should be ready, okay, or your data gathering procedure should contain, okay, the efforts of the researcher to find a psychologist or a psychiatrist, should there be, again, a PTSD from the participants uh, during the research. So you have here the IRB, or what we call as the Ethics Review Board. Okay, Ethics Review Board or the Institutional Review Board. So this IRB, okay, or the Institutional Review Board is a board required in research institutions that reviews and oversees all research involving human subjects. And of course, they will ensure, okay, that the study will meet all regulations, including ethical standards. So there are three categories of research reviewed by the IRB. So this one will take you a longer time for your proposal to be approved, because again the roots of IRBs could be tracked from the National Commission for Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. So again, you have even in the US, okay, they have the IRB. So we have here the three categories. The exempt review, it covers proposal that do not require review by the IRB. Okay, the category is limited to studies that pose no risk to the subjects. Such a designation is common when the researcher employs, of course, your surveys, non-invasive procedures, secondary data or documents, or other methods where it would be impossible to identify any research subject individuality. Okay, so that is the exempt review. The exemption only refers to the fact that the IRB does not need to review the study proposal. Okay, kasi it does not exempt the researcher from the same ethical principle that govern all the research. So even if, for example, it is an exempt review, the IRB um, will still need to read the research. Okay. Number two, the expedited review. It covers, or it is a research that poses only minimal risk to the participants for those studies that use drugs that do not require FDA approval. Minimal risks means that the probability or magnitude of discomfort anticipated in research is not greater than what is ordinarily encountered in, of course, your daily life. Um, it may also be considered no more risky than what would be encountered during the performance of routine physical or psychological examination. So, expedited review research, okay, it is usually reviewed by one or two members of the IRB who may consult with other board members as necessary. So you still have your full review. Of course, it is necessary for all research poses more than minimal risk to the subjects and for research that does not qualify for exempt status. So it is in this time that a full review must be done. These studies are reviewed by the full committee. When you say full review, everyone in the committee in the IRB will review your study with particular attention being paid to the methods, um, consent process, selection of the subjects, and this one will require direct access to the participants, use personally identifiable medical information. They might be asking of the diagnosis of your patient as well. The full IRD must be done under the following conditions. Of course, when the um, study require direct access to participants, human subjects are put at more than minimal risk, and protected health information is required, like diagnosis, or you will be using the fund of the government, or publication is anticipated. You have to take note that quality improvement studies are exempted from IRB review also. Okay. Such studies are typically conducted for the purpose of internal organization improvement, and there is no expectation for publication, kaya they will not review this one. Okay. Occasionally, though quality improvement may be conducted with the idea of publishing the study, the IRB oversight is appropriate. So, pwede pa din. Okay. So, another one. Okay. So, that will be the lesson for the week 8 and 9. So, you will have to have the method of data interpretation. Again, it should be congruent with your approach and design in qualitative research. Okay, you should know who are Georgie, you should know who are Easterberg, the Red and Patterson, your Van Manen, your Kalaisi. Okay, so you have to be very familiar if they're followers of Husserl, Edmund Husserl, and Heidegger, of course, before you finally decide on the method of interpretation that you will be using. Again, you have your WH informed consent. It must be discussed to your participants before the conduct of the interviews. If, for example, your participants have different languages and you have to translate, okay, the WHO informed consent for them to be able to understand what is the research is all about. Okay. And then that is a must. It must again it should be included in the appendices of your research. And you have your establishing trustworthiness of data again by Lincoln and Cuba. You will have to have your credibility, confirmability, dependability, and transferability. Okay. And then you have your ethical considerations in the conduct of qualitative research. You have a respect for persons. You have to know who are the members of the vulnerable population. And if they're vulnerable, you should be very careful in the discussion of this vulnerable population on how you will be going to protect them. And you have the beneficence, and you have the justice. And again, the IRB, the Institutional Review Board, should approve the conduct of the study before you will be going to interview. Okay, you should not be having a shortcut on this, because if you will be publishing a paper and the paper needs of an IRB, okay, your paper will be questioned later on why you don't have the IRB or ERB approval. So in our college, we have the director for research as the chairman for the Ethics Review Board of Union Christian College. Thank you for today and goodbye.